Good afternoon to those of you out there on the West Coast, way out there in the Pacific and Hawaii, Guam, Northern Mariana Islands. I don't know, did I just say good afternoon to all of you? Good morning to all of you. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. That's what happens when I'm just sitting around waiting for noon to hit so I can start and go live. I just got too much energy. I'm excited to get started today on training around how to triple your federal revenue for in the federal market as a small business, right? There's three ways. I'm going to describe those three ways. I've tackled this kind of training before. And in fact, this is where I want to give you a tip. I like giving tips at the beginning of the training just as a way to say thank you to those showing up early and on time. And my tip for you is related to the previous training I've done. I don't know if you know this, but we do training like this every single business day, right? Every single weekday. So we've done it on July 4th and other holidays like that. We just come in noon and we've had like 40, 50 people on a holiday, but we do it every weekday because we're just committed to get the training out so that more people can learn the how. If you can't afford to work with us, we don't keep that information to ourselves. We share the how, we share tactical advice. And we've done well over 300 videos and trainings, live trainings in a row over the last 15 months. So since the second quarter of 2022. You can get access to those replays. The replays, even this one, they're available immediately, and you can get access to them ungated on many different places, but at the very least on my LinkedIn profile. So if you're not connected with me, come in, connect with me, but you can come to my LinkedIn profile, go down to my featured section, and one of the three featured items will be a link to the newsletter that tells you about all the previous trainings. It tells you about this week's trainings, next week's trainings. So make sure you're in and you're following that newsletter if you ever want to get access to previous stuff. Okay, that was a tip for those of you who showing up early and on time. It's just, I really appreciate when you do that. I appreciate when you engage in the community because this isn't just training. It's also about giving you a chance to network and meet new people or see somebody over and over and over again until you guys finally say, hey, let's go offline and talk. So I like being able to bring that to you. Let me just get my screen shared here and we're off to the races. Okay, today we're going to be talking about tripling your federal revenue. Hopefully that's a good topic for everybody. I've tackled this topic multiple times in the past. Again, that's where you'll find it in the previous training. But specifically, I want to talk about this idea of getting your mindset around the government contracting being so much more than just prime contracting. And as we get into today's training, I want you to ask yourself, why are you in the federal market? Why are you trying to do any kind of sales, et cetera? Sometimes I run into people, they just want to prime. And I'm like, well, why do you want any business at all? I put down a couple of ideas, right? If you're trying to build a generational business, it doesn't need to be only prime contracts. It can be primes and subcontracts. Really, the only reason, just as a complete aside, the only reason that I ever say you must prime is if you want to sell your company. If you're going to sell your company, prime contracts, contract vehicles are the most attractive things to buyers. But if you're building a company and you're building it up and getting it strong, then spreading that out is never a bad thing. If your goal is to make more money, just increase your revenue, right? Is your goal to hire more people so you have back office people who can help you build the company? You're not doing it all by yourself, but you got experts there. You're hiring subject matter experts who can help you build a company around a particular core competency. Right? Maybe that's what you want for your business, is to really build up a company that is known for a core competency like Microsoft 365 or SharePoint or construction services, whatever it is. Maybe you want to build bigger and bigger contracts or win bigger and bigger contracts, right? Well, a combination of your subbing and priming will add to it, but also subcontracting will get you in the door. And the last one is just, when you think about why you're trying to do anything you do on a daily basis around sales in the federal market, maybe you're just trying to get into agencies. And getting into agencies is far easier when you ride the coattails of somebody else than it is prime contracting. And then you're in, and then you come back and prime, right? So there's all these reasons around it. But as we go forward, I want you to think to yourself, as you're seeing the three different streams that I'm going to talk about, why are you doing what you're doing? What are your goals beyond just a dollar goal, right? What are some of the goals and things you're trying to achieve? Today, on the topic of the three streams or the three ways you can triple your federal revenue or see 3 times as large federal revenue dollars coming in, it's going to come down to subcontracting under small businesses, prime contracting with federal agencies, and then subcontracting under large businesses. Those are the 3 paths to federal money. That's the only place money comes from. And what I'm going to try to convince you in today's training is don't just pick one of these paths. You should have a plan for all three of them. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome you to my federal training where I provide tips for success as a way to succeed. I've been a small business owner for 20 years. I've been a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been helping people like you know that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is going from A to Z, right? And if you follow that process, you can have repeatable, predictable results. That's what I want for you. I'm going to pause for 1 second. I'm asking you to put your company name and your core competency into the chat. Let others know that you're what your company is and what you sell as you're building the community. So today we're going to talk about 3 streams of federal revenue. I already alluded to this, right? But the 3 streams are subcontracting under small businesses, prime contracting with federal agencies, and subcontracting under large businesses. Just in case we got anybody brand new, subcontracting is just when you work on a team of some company that has won a contract with the government. So if company ABC has won a contract with HHS, they have the contract. They're the prime contractor. If you work with them, if you're part of the team, if you've got 2 people on their contract, that's called subcontracting, right? For the rest of us, we already know this. The thing that you want to keep in mind about these 3 revenue streams is that they go in this order. So if you're newer to government contracting, start on the left, work your way to the right. Start with the first stream, which is subbing under a small, and I'll talk about why in a minute, but then start moving forward. If you're farther along, never stop doing what's to the left. And so let's say you're a $40 million firm. You still want to subcontract under small businesses, prime with agencies, and subcontract under larges. When you do that, you hit your goals. I was on my whiteboard when I was preparing some of the training, I was thinking about like, what's your goal? And let's say you're a $5 million 8A firm and you want to go to 10 million. Right? One of the things that 8A or SBA puts on 8As is that you must diversify some 8A contracts and some not 8A contracts. Well, when you prime with an agency and go after 8A contracts, that's the 8A priming, right? But if you sub under a small or a large, now you're diversifying that. If you want to go from 5 million to a $10 million firm, you have a $5 million new goal. What I always tell people is then divide that up under the subbing with smalls, larges, and prime contracting. So if that 8A firm, I might sit there and say, as an 8A firm, I might tell you, you should be trying to get, let's say 2 or 3 million with the agencies, and then $1 million under the smalls and $1 million under the large. Whatever you do, take your goal and spread it across all 3 streams so that you can hit it. Just to stretch that example, sometimes I will double it. If I have a $3 million goal for next year, then I might say 1 million, 1 million, 1 million, right? But I might double that and say, look, my goal is really 2 million under smalls, 2 under agencies, and 2 under larges. I'm stretching that goal. So if I miss the goal, I still will hit my minimum goal of 3 million. So as you're planning out strategy, think about that. One quick thing before I move on is I have a really good training. It's a 5-year strategy training, how to create a 5-year strategy wheel or a strategic plan for your 5-year growth. And in there, I take these 3 streams and I talk about it in a whole different way, but I talk about how to lay it out on a single piece of paper so that everybody in your company can see where you're trying to get money and how you'll get money. For example, if you're subbing under larges, which larges do we expect to get that money from? So go watch that training if you haven't seen it. Okay, so let's talk about the first revenue stream. This revenue stream is subcontracting under small businesses. And just to give you some background on this, in 2022, roughly $159 billion went to prime contractors that are small businesses, right? So $160 billion going to small businesses already. And as you think about that, if you were not that prime contractor, you can come in as a subcontractor and try to get a piece of that $159 billion, right? Nowhere in any of my training ever am I saying you're going to get more money than you deserve. All of us deserve just a little bit more than we're earning today. So if we're a $2 million firm, a realistic goal for next year is 3 to 5, right? Even that 5 is kind of a stretch, but that's fine. I'm okay with 100% growth. But don't try to think that you're going to have, hundreds of percent growth each year. So if you have realistic goals, that's fine. And for most of us small businesses in this training, we're 20 million and below. And so when you think about 159 billion in spend that went to small businesses, you want to have a strategy that says in your company, how are we going to go get our 2 or 5 million from that pool, that stream of dollars, right? You should have a plan around that. And I'll talk a little bit about how to put that plan in place. Some of the advantages of subcontracting under a small, whether you're brand new or existing, is you can let them administer the contract. You know, obviously, if you're brand new, that totally makes sense, right? Let somebody else prime it, do all the main work, and you just come in and do your area of expertise and get revenue for that. But if you're farther along, let's say you're a $10 million firm or an 8A firm trying to grow, well, you're going after, and most of your energy or your back office energy might be focused on the prime contracts you're trying to go after. If you can team with some smalls, you can still grow your revenue, but basically they've got the big lift. You're going to participate on the proposal writing, et cetera. And then you'll focus on delivery, but you can focus your energy on the contract vehicles you're chasing for priming or prime contract task orders you're chasing, things like that. So an advantage of going after a small business to sub under is letting them just do a lot of the administrative activity. Another great reason with going with smalls, and I'll break this down a little bit more, is that when you think about these companies, these small businesses that have won $160 billion in contracts from the federal government, they have existing relationships in there. So if you team up with them, you can begin to learn and build into an agency through their relationships. They have existing contracting officer relationships, which means the two of you can kind of go in and try to pursue additional work. And they've got existing contract vehicles. There's 8A Stars 3. I don't know if I mentioned it further, but 8A Stars 3 has 1,200 contract holders. That means 1,200 8A firms are in winning or potentially winning business on that one contract vehicle. So you can expand that to say, well, my target agency, who's on those vehicles I want to go. So there's a lot of good reasons on why to pursue that. I want to talk with you about when you think about going after small businesses to sub under, think about some minimum targets. First off, I would only go after companies that are doing 5 million or more in prime dollars. So go to usaspending.gov, do whatever searching you're doing. And when you look at the companies, make sure they're making $5 million or more in revenue in 2022, let's say. That's the last fiscal year we have a full year for. Make sure they're bringing in $5 million a year. And the reason I say that is because then there's potentially room for you to get on their team to grow. If they're below that, they might still be in that stage of, hey, we're just trying to grow ourselves, right? It does not mean you don't talk to people who are under 5 million. It doesn't mean you don't have relationships. I just defined the difference between a strategic target or teammate and just other relationships. And so in here, I want you to aim for $5 million or more. And then there's 5 groups of people that you want to be targeting, right? The typical overall small business could be any small business. And then you want to get at least one strategic teaming partner that's a hub zone small business, one that's a woman-owned small business, one that is a service disabled veteran-owned small business, and one at least that is an 8A small business. And the reason is because if you're trying to subcontract and go after that 159 billion, much of that 159 billion was set aside to somebody. And so if you can team up with a woman-owned small business that is winning, that $5 million level, and something comes out that you can help with that is woman-owned set aside, now you can be teaming with her to be able to go after those opportunities. And same thing with these other designations. So you want at least one from each of these categories. As you mature and you have like a full-time salesperson, you want to get that up to at least 2 people, 2 different companies. So you have eight of those companies out there. And the last part about minimum targets is if you're at an early stage, you can kind of go after anybody. But if you're more mature company, or you're doing 3 million, 5 million, 10 million, then you should be going after specific agencies and looking for small businesses that are in that agency that you can team up with. And so what you want to do is to look for strategic contract vehicles that are being used by the agency of your choice. We're helping a customer right now who's in our workshop, and they're in phase 2. There's 3 phases. And so phase 2 is targeting. And they're going after HHS. And just yesterday, we were working on, hey, here are the top IDIQs used in HHS. Here's the top BPAs. Here's the top GWACs, et cetera. These are all contract vehicles. So, and this is how the government buys. So we're looking at those. And I mean strategic because now I'm not looking at vehicles in general, but vehicles that HHS uses. And when I see that, then I'm able to follow that thread and go find out who are the contract holders on those vehicles and begin to move forward. So let me give you a couple of steps on just how you can pursue small business dollars. And this is by no means exhaustive. I've done this training multiple times where I've talked about, for example, just subcontracting under smalls in an entire 30-minute training. So go back, make sure you're looking at that previous training and see it. But for today, here's 7 steps to pursue federal contracting dollars as a subcontractor under a small business. The first thing is make sure you have a niche. If people can't see where you fit, and I don't mean value proposition, I just mean what do you do? If you can't clearly articulate what you do and have it niched down, then it makes it hard for any of us to see where you fit on our team. But if you can come in like this company I was talking about, they do SharePoint, they do Power Platform, things like that, Microsoft 365 products. Well, if they come in, somebody can go, oh, I get it. No, we're doing AWS. You do that. That's cool. We can team up and let you have the Microsoft stuff. Think that way when you're thinking about niching down. Also, as you move forward, it's your work share. So if they're going after an opportunity, it's got 5 task orders, or task areas, or 10 task areas. You can look in there and see if one of those task areas fits your niche. So that's really important for number 1. So step 2, build a list of 200 small business prime contractors. This is targeting. When we teach the 7-step process for federal revenue success, step 2 is targeting, and that's building that list. If I'm working in HHS, I'll go to HHS and see which 200 small businesses have won in the last, let's say 2 years, 3 years. And I'll look in there and remember, I'm looking for those $5 million firms. But first you build that list of 200 firms. That's your targeting list, right? And then continuing that targeting, the ones that you like off that list, go to DSBS. This is step number 3. Go to DSBS, the Dynamic Small Business Search, and you can find the phone number, email, and name of the owner of that company. It's almost like 99% of the time it's the owner. Sometimes it's just the business development POC, and that's fine as well. But you can find the point of contact for that company you just identified. That leads you to step 4, right? Reach out to them, pick up the phone and call them, leave a voicemail if you have to, and then follow up with an email. That's the pattern. But you want to reach out to them. That's step 3 in our 7-step process. This is outreach. You're calling to set up a first meeting. When you have that meeting, step 5 is about getting commitment to work. You're going to call 100 people, let's say, or 200 people, right? But let's use 100. It's easier. You're going to call 100 people. 50 of them are going to basically talk to you, and 50 of them basically will not. I say that some will, some won't. So what, right? And the so what part is the people who won't. Don't worry about them. It's not the right time for them. It's not a right fit. Things like that. Who cares? There's 50 people who are going to talk to you, and of those people, 16 of them are pretty much going to be excited to talk with you. So every 100 people you call, you should expect to find 16 people who are excited that you're calling. Now you're using that to see, well, can we get a commitment to work together? Are we going to talk? And I would submit every 100 people you call, you'll find 2 or 3 for sure who are the right fits for you. You just got to call enough people, and that's outreach, number 4. So number 6 is schedule that 15-minute recurring meeting every 2 weeks. This is what I mean when I say, do you really want to work strategically together? So if I get you to sign an NDA that commits you want to work with me, if you schedule a recurring meeting, now you're really committing to that relationship and building that relationship. If I find the other person is hesitant, well, why don't we wing it? I'm like, okay, thanks. You're in that, later area, maybe not on the other side of the bell curve, but you're certainly on the late side of the positive side. I want somebody who goes, oh no, recurring meeting sounds good. Let's not leave this to chance. Let's proactively build our relationship. And the last step, number 7, is as you're working with these people, identify 7 to 10 opportunities at any given point as you move forward. And for small businesses, you're looking, let's say 2 million plus, and I'm trying to train to people at all different levels, right? So if you're a $20 million firm, you can definitely be aiming for much larger contracts to go after with other smalls. I have small business customers we support that go after numerous opportunities that are 250 million and more. So, everybody's at a different range, but you want to identify opportunities with that person and say, let's keep building that relationship. You come together every 2 weeks for 15 minutes and say, hey, let's look at the pipeline. Anything moving forward on this? You're doing your activity, right? I'm not trying to teach you capture or relationship building at the moment, but you get the point. So that's revenue stream number 1, subcontracting under a small business. As you progress in organizational experience and maturity, revenue stream number 2 opens up for you, right? And this is prime contracting with a federal agency. One of the biggest mistakes small businesses make is we try to go prime contracting or go to knock on large doors too early. There's a time for us to go. And when that time is right, you're going to have fun. You're going to have success. But if you go too early, you're going to feel like it's difficult. It's complex. The only reason prime contracting is hard is because maybe we're not prepared for it. But if you've got solid past performance, solid core competencies, etc., then prime contracting will be a lot easier than when you first started your business. So keep that in mind. So in 2022, the federal government contracted roughly $683 billion total. So this is full and open and set aside. As a small business who I'm training, that's the world I teach. As a small business, you have access to all 683 million or billion, excuse me, but not all of it fits for your company, right? So don't even see that. You want to really niche it down and go. An example is people who do cybersecurity. DoD spends $10-15 billion on cyber. When you balance that with this number, that number goes from 680 down to 10 billion, let's say. But when you look into cyber, there's certain cyber you do and certain cyber you don't, and it brings it down to, let's say, DoD spending 2 to 4 billion. That's still a lot of money, so don't worry about the 680 billion, but I'm just using that big number saying when you go to prime contract, there's a lot of dollars out there to be identifying, aligning with what you sell. So here's the steps I'm recommending from a very high level on how to pursue federal dollars, right? And this is not how to get into government contracting. The reason I'm teaching these steps is just as a way to keep reinforcing in your head that there's 3 ways to make money: small subcontracting, priming, and large subcontracting. So here to pursue prime contract dollars, first thing is to make sure you're procurement ready, right? I wrote here, ready and attractive to the agency contracting officers. And what that means to me, and when I say procurement ready, it means that you have a niche, you know what you sell. It means you have past performance in the federal market as a subcontractor. You've been doing 3 years or $3 million in business is my recommendation. Yes, of course, people have won prime contracts without any of that. That is not the norm, right? The norm is you get experience as a subcontractor under a small business, you learn all the ropes, and then you move forward. And so you're ready and attracted to the KOs because they don't feel like you're a big risk to them. They're risk averse. I wrote here a little later, I'm going to talk about it, but I might as well talk about it now, right? They're very risk averse. If you come down to bullet 3.2, whatever that is, I wrote VA suicide prevention. It's their number one initiative or priority in the Department of Veterans Affairs is this high suicide rate of veterans. And it's a huge issue. But one of the challenges they recently had, and I don't want to go into the graphics of this, but one of the things that is coming to light is that the VA has a large budget around suicide prevention advertising. But really, it's as if those advertising dollars are being spent for the sake of advertising, not for the sake of reducing suicide. Not to get into a completely debatable area here, but this is something that the VA and the Government Affairs Office and others have really recognized as a challenge for them. The reason I'm saying this, bring this up to this, they're risk averse. It's not just about, hey, we're going to spend our money, but we're spending our money for you to help us with our mission. So in the Army, the mission is downstream warfare or something, let's say. And in the VA, it's veteran healthcare. We're never about SharePoint or cybersecurity or advertising. We're about improving the quality of care for veterans, for example. And when they see you as risk, as a low risk, then they see you as being able to contribute to the mission success. And that's what I mean, again, by making sure you're ready and attractive. And I already said, make sure you're bringing at least 3 past performances. When you're going into a prime contract, that's usually what you need. If you don't have those, just pause for a second and go subcontract with a small, build some of those and come back and start priming instead of wasting years trying to prime and not getting any luck. Number 2, have a single core competency they can see. Number 3, I already kind of alluded to this, right? But know the agency as well as anybody. So that means doing research. This is one of the first proactive steps you're taking into priming into an agency, knowing them. I'm not dismissing, looking into SAM, seeing an opportunity, responding. What I'm saying is that's not really sales, that's bidding. If you want to do sales and build a relationship with the VA or the Army or whoever, then get in and know their agency. I wrote here a tip, and you can watch an entire training I did last week on how to research. but build an organizational chart. So you build out a big org chart. I was just listening to, and I'm sorry I don't know it. I don't know if it was Shannon Jackson in HHS, and it might have been, but I think he said until he began to really work there and see it, he didn't realize there was like 170 different offices and organizations within HHS. It was like huge. Well, I want you to build an org chart of every single one of them and then make a determination on whether they're a potential customer. When you start doing that, you're ready to move forward. Step number 4, register in their supplier portal. Many of them, like HHS, have a supplier portal. Just today, the Air Force Test Center put out a notice saying that they're looking for people to come in and register with their supplier base so that they know who you are and they can reach back out to you when there's a match, right? By the way, we'll put that in our supplier portal. So step 5, right? You're doing this activity in the government. Create a list of 200 people that you're going to call. Watch my training to expand on that, but then do the same thing you did with smalls. Reach out and schedule introduction meetings. When you do that, you're starting to build relationships that allow you to get to know the agency. This is separate than capture, right? Capture is a whole nother activity. I'm kind of still in the business development world. And then the number 7, the last step I just want to leave you here is respond to sources sought. Right now, there's 942 open sources sought. That means there's probably more, but there's 942 sources sought where they're looking for a company like yours that the due date for the response is in the next 30 days. Well, that's end of the year spending for most of them, right? Some of them might be just looking at an out year opportunity, but for most of them, these are opportunities that could be end of the year spending. So you want to be able to respond to sources sought that lets these federal agencies know you're there. Hey, so I'm going to go through pretty fast because I got a lot, but if you haven't downloaded our directory, it's a free directory, a small business specialist. When I talk about prime contracting with an agency, you can reach out and use these folks as a way to get started. They're the gatekeepers, but they're also the focuses of receptivity who can give you guidance on getting in. And also, if you ever have any questions related to government contracting, feel free to just use that Ask Me Anything button on our homepage for the website. Okay, so let me talk about the third one. And this one I'm going really fast, but it just is what it is. And there's other training. But the third stream is subcontracting under large primes. And what I really want to highlight is that you can see here, $424 billion was awarded to larges. Roughly 30% of the dollars that go to large businesses need to be in a subcontracting plan, or a small business plan, saying the large businesses are planning on how they can take 30% of those dollars and get them to smalls. The government is putting that responsibility on the larges, who they just gave this big contract to. And so roughly 127 billion the largest have 127 billion that should be getting into small business hands. How much of that do you want, right? And what I put here is there's 127,000 opportunities for $1 million subcontracting a year. You need to sit there and be some company that's attractive to the largest to be able to go after this, and never approach them and say, hey, you need to give it to us because you got a small business plan. But if you are attractive, what I put here again, ready and attracted to the large firms, if you have that solid niche, you come in and say, hey, we do artificial intelligence, we do Power Platform on the Microsoft 365 platform, then they're going to be attracted to you. They'll understand it. And so I put in some steps here, same as outreach. You can watch that training. But what I wanted to get to is number 7. Make sure you get a commitment to work together, and then schedule a 15-minute meeting that happens every 2 weeks. I have these kind of meetings all the time where it's a meeting with a large prime and we're talking about capture opportunities. You want to be able to get to that stage. If you're a business that has past performance and agency intimacy, then they're going to want to work with you. And the last thing I was talking about is make sure you're meeting with new people at those largest. Once you're in, you have this ability to organically walk the halls, if you will, going from an Air Force relationship you have to Army or to education. I did want to put down, by the way, number 9 says identify 5 to 10 key opportunities. I have a friend who's at a large business. I just want you to understand the perspective. He doesn't even get a real full proposal team on any opportunity unless it's above 250 million. If it's below 250 million, him and a couple other people have to come together and write it. That's how drastic that kind of thing is. Those people are always looking for really good small business teaming partners. So just remember, if you want to triple your revenue in the federal market, have a plan to go after subcontracting dollars under small businesses, prime contracting with federal agencies, and pursuing subcontracting under large businesses when you get to that stage. and always do all three of them once you hit a certain stage of maturity. Never avoid any of them because they're all great. Just for everybody, remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is letting us know how it's going. So if you like today's training, or if you want more information on it, put something in the chat, let us know, and I'll see you in the next training.